Welcome to Getting Out of a Slump Author Edition, where I'm going to be telling you 7 tips with some sub-tips of how to get out of your current writing slump. Just a future me problem. This is overwhelming. I'm not doing this right now. And I've been on Canva for hours now. Have the outline done. It's January, and let's be honest, now is not the moment for a slump. But if you're in one, you're in the right place. I don't know about you, but last year I signed on for NaNoWriMo, and the first thing that hit me in this year was editing. I finished my manuscript last year, December, halfway through December. I was like done with it. I had all my words, I was set, and I was like, okay, new year, new me, new editing journey. I'm going to just enjoy the fact that I finished writing the rough draft and not bother myself with editing until the new year. Lo and behold, January rocked up and it is the new year and I haven't done so much editing. I wanted to do more. So what I had a problem with is I couldn't see the big picture. I find it very difficult to write out the big picture unless I can physically hold it in my hand. So the first tip that I have for you is if you finished your writing, then editing is so much easier for me personally, and I think it could be for you, if you actually print out your manuscript, which is what I did in the first month of the year because that's what you gotta do. So I have my manuscript right here, hang on. Just look at that. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so this is my manuscript from my current book that I'm doing. And let me tell you, having this in my hand, I printed it yesterday. Having this in my hand is literally the biggest motivation to actually work on it, which brings me to sub-tip 1, which is if you've already printed out your manuscript or have some way of doing this on your laptop or whatever, like whatever works for you, but get yourself some cute highlighters, some cute doodlings. Personally, I have a bunch of pastel sticky notes and like flower shaped sticky notes and things like that, which I'm going to be using in my manuscript as I'm editing, as well as like markers, I like pastel colors when it comes to highlighters and stuff. Maybe you want neon colors, maybe you want to have earthy tones, doesn't really matter. What you want to inspire you, get it, because this is a project that is going to change your entire life. If you are writing a book right now, keep going, honestly. And I think this really applies to any kind of writing, not just if it's a book or if it's a novel like it is in my case, but if it's any kind of writing that you need to edit extensively, then please, by all means, get yourself some cute stationery to actually motivate you to write. This is random, but sub-tip number 2 would be write cute little notes to your future self. Like in my book, I have some very interesting little notes to myself that I just basically put in brackets. I was like, okay, this is gonna be a future me problem. So I addressed it politely. Let me see if I can quickly find one, hang on. Okay, I found it. That took a while. Okay, so this is literally what I wrote to myself while in the writing phase of this manuscript. I said, just a future me problem. Hi, thank you for making my decisions for me, but I think maybe we need to take them back and yada yada yada. No spoilers. I'm not giving you spoilers, but I was basically writing a little mini note to myself saying, it would make much more sense to do that, Jessica, even if it's more effort. Also, please do a lot of research and actually base this on things that are more realistic. So I get to, since I am future me, read this and have a good laugh and make a lot of effort because my past self was like, this is overwhelming. I'm not doing this right now. So it's a good tip, actually. I really enjoy going back and finding these things. And this is also stuff that you can do on the sticky notes. Just a good idea. All right. Tip number 2 is create a timeline. So I was watching this video by, hang on, I wrote down the name. It's caitlin.slowick.editing. That's her Instagram handle. So she put up this video, and she's an editor, and she basically said that one of the main things that she finds new authors are not doing right or are struggling with when she edits their work is they have some timeline errors. So things that should be happening a month from now are happening a week from now, or there's not a clear indication of like when the season's changed or whatever the case may be. So I would say making a timeline, which again, it doesn't even have to be like a stressful thing. I'm literally making it so much fun. I've been on Canva for hours now, just working out, they've got some cute templates and things like that, making a timeline that works for me and that is actually effective so that I can see, okay, wait, they're here at this time, but 2 days later, they were also there, so that cannot be that way, so I can fix that. So it just gives a much clearer picture of what your story is looking like, getting a overall overarching picture of your story, which is exactly what this tip, previous tip, and the next tip are all about, getting the bigger picture and making that come across more clearly. Which again brings me to tip number 3, which is to do an outline. Now, for you outliners out there, that sounds like complete nonsense. Jessica, you've already written your book. What do you mean you haven't done an outline? And I have, sort of. What I usually do, I'm not a pantser and I am not an outliner. So if you are a pantser, that means you fly by the seat of your pants and you just write the story start to finish without a clear like outline. And that is an amazing way. That's like a talent that I do not have. I've never been able to quite manage that. But I'm also not 100% an outliner, so I don't have like the clearest things that are going on. I don't have those outlines that you were taught to make in school, point for point, or the little whatever that thing was, like you go up to the climax and go down to the denouement. Like I paid attention, but I didn't actually ever find inspiration in that. So what I do is I paraphrase my entire novel. Now, in this particular case with my novel currently, if you were following along my first video, I think it was, where I explained how I start and finish the first sort of section. So I was starting my NaNoWriMo, and I did a thing where I wrote this paragraph after paragraph after paragraph outlining what the story needs to happen in order, what needs to happen in the story in order for it to make sense, for the start and the conclusion to make sense, right? So while I was doing this, I didn't put chapters in, I didn't count words, I didn't do any of that stuff. All that I did was said, okay, these are the things that I want to do. And like I think I've mentioned this in previous videos that I've done that. And that really works for me. Then I will take that and I'll break it up into chapters, and each chapter will have maybe a paragraph or two explanation of what's supposed to happen in this chapter. Once I have all that, then I write my novel. And I think it's brilliant. I think it works really well. Maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but I found that that works. And when I look at that, I find myself with just a teeny weeny little problem, and that is I don't have a clear overall picture, because my clear overall picture is 7 pages long and it's a bit of a hefty read. So what I want to do, this is something I'm still planning to do, is to actually take my entire manuscript and plot it, have the outline done. And what I mean by that is to actually go to my old school work and find out how I did it, and just actually plot it in a way that I can see on one page, what is this novel, where are they going, what are they doing in each chapter. That way I can have a clear overall picture and I don't get lost in the details. So if I'm editing and I'm like, does this make sense? Then I can go and look at my outline and say, yes, it actually makes sense. Or no, what are they even doing in this place at this time? They're supposed to be in a totally different place. So I think it's just really helpful to do that. So those are my 3 first tips, which are all about getting the big picture. So let's zoom out a little bit and do the next tips. The next 2 tips are in the get re-inspired category. Okay, so they are not so much focusing on the actual work, but the fun bits that make the work worth it. You know what I'm saying? One of the things that I really want to do, I do not have the talent for it yet, so I'm still in the learning process, but something I really want to do is fan art for my own novel. So I am fully aware that I am not a digital art person, but I do want to get into it, and I do want to start doing it because I just think it's so cool. Like, yes, it's a visual representation of what the words are saying in the book, and yes, you can have movies that butcher it completely, and you have those that actually go with the flow, but what I really want is to see my characters more clearly. So yeah, I've always heard of, you know, filling out the character questionnaires and like getting to know your characters better, which is another good thing. Totally do that. Absolutely. Should have put that on my list, but I didn't, but definitely go do that because that helps so much, because you need to understand what your characters are thinking, how they approach life. And if you can understand how they approach life, then things get a lot easier when you're trying to write them in any kind of context. You can know innately how they will respond. So that's a good one. One tiny little side tip, I'm going on a side pause here, but a side tip that I would give to you is write what their insecurities are. Okay, me personally, I have insecurities. I think we all do, right? But let's say my insecurity was my nose, which it's not. But my nose, I think it's too big. Okay? Let's say my character believes that her eyebrows are way too bushy, so she always plucks them to near death, all right? Like, have insecurities, because we all have them. I think we can relate to that a lot. If you find it in a character, particularly if they have the same insecurity as you or a similar one, it really is a lot more relatable than this person who maybe has fears but no insecurities, or has, you know, emotion but you don't know where it comes from. So if I wrote a character, maybe I would give her the insecurity of she genuinely does not like her hands. And she will wear gloves, she will wear, she'll put all kinds of big rings and things on her hands to try and sort of hide her hands. And it just becomes not something that gets addressed directly in the book, but something that you come to associate with her. And if you can make those associations, I feel like that gives you a stronger character. The second thing that I do with my characters that I think is quite beneficial is I give them, it's not as insecurity, but like a quirk. Like my one character maybe will talk to all her plants, and she does not leave the room without petting her plants, you know? And, or maybe my guy character is literally obsessed with the color yellow, and he wants everything to be yellow, and if he gets a choice of any kind of armor, any kind of anything, like maybe he's a warrior in medieval times, but he constantly wants yellow, and his friends are like, "You're crazy, why are you wearing yellow into battle? You're making yourself a target." But he's like, "I love yellow." You know, like, okay, obviously those are weird quirks, but like, just give them something that's completely associatable. Like, associable, I don't think that's a word. That might be a word. Could be a word, we don't know if it's a word. But like, associable with their character, so that if you think of them, you think of these quirks, instead of thinking of a blank face that has maybe some actions that they do, but no real quirks. Because we all have quirks, guys. We all do. And I think it's really good to have characters with character quirks. So yeah, those are side things that I didn't even think I was going to be talking about, but you get bonus. So that's great. I have been recommended many times by the internet, specifically Instagram, to go onto Pinterest and create a mood board for the book, create storyboard, like boards for your characters, for anything and everything. I personally, my Pinterest looks like this. So I find it very, very difficult to actually make those boards, and I also find it quite distracting. But I know that people have had really good results with it, and basically anything I think that makes your characters more real to you is a beneficial thing to do. So if that is helping you, by all means do it, but I find it difficult personally. So yeah, and if it makes you want to write, 100% do it. This is about being re-inspired. This is about getting out of that writing slump, getting out of that sort of, I don't really want to edit, I don't really want to write, getting out of that and breathing a fresh new breath of literally just being an author. Like, congratulations, you're a writer. Live in it. All right. So I have 2 more tips for you. We'll see how that goes, because I thought I only had 4, but we don't know. The first of the last tips is basically just to keep moving that creative muscle, okay? So what I have is I like to keep a notebook. I literally will write anything in here. Something that I posted on my Instagram, and if you guys have any recommendations on music, what I want to do is take songs and purely based on vibe, not based on melody, not based on the actual story behind the song or the song itself, but based on the vibe of the song, create a storyline, a plot line. And not necessarily write the story, but actually just exercise that creative muscle. So that is a really good tip. Anything and everything, whatever works for you. If you have an urge to create poetry all the time, do that 100%. If you want to write short stories, or if you want to just write catchy one-liners for your catchy characters, like absolutely write those down on a notes app, in your notebook, anything.
Okay, so here is my final tip. Do what doesn't overwhelm you. Okay, we all know there are moments you have got to push through as an author, as a person, as a human being. There are always going to be moments that you have to muscle through, get to the end of. It's not going to be easy, but you have to push through. But if you are doing nothing because you feel like you always have to be pushing, that's not going to go anywhere either. So what you need to do is do something that doesn't overwhelm you. Like for instance, me, when I'm in a slump, editing seems like a mountain, but opening the document on my computer, I can do that, you know? Or maybe scrolling through the book to my favorite scene and rereading it, fixing any typos there are. That is not hard to do. That is not overwhelming to me, okay? So like, find something small to start you rolling. Once you have that momentum, you can continue, you can go further, you can actually accomplish so much more by just doing the smallest thing that actually doesn't overwhelm you, as opposed to trying to do absolutely everything and getting super overwhelmed and just not moving forward at all. So yeah, that's all my tips and tricks for getting out of a slump, and I hope that this video has helped you in some way. Comment down below if you have any kind of tips for your own self that you have found beneficial for getting out of a slump, especially as a writer, but just in general life as well. And I hope to see you guys next time. Okay, bye!